Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Timothy. I'm actually the executive director of Memory Oaks. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you for being here with us today for this segment of the panel discussion, which is actually also part of the Catholic200SG Festival. Okay, for this segment, panel discussion is actually Move Lives, Barriers and Stigma equal to Inclusivity. Okay, for Memory Oaks, for those who do not know Memory Oaks, which I think most of you here who knows Memory Oaks very well. Okay, for Memory Oaks, we are actually a non-profit organization. We are also a member organization of Catechesis. And our mission is actually to empower the lives of intellectual disability for people with intellectual disability and developmental disability. So what we do, we are actually a day activity center tucked in the very eastern part of Singapore. And we are actually situated on the ground of St. Patrick's School. And for those who do not know us, you can actually come and visit us. It's a very nice, scenic place. Okay. So for now, I guess I will not say much. I will show you the corporate video, a short video of Memory Oaks. And yeah, okay. Okay, so this is a short clip and a short video of what Memory Oaks is. So basically, we are a day activity center, and we actually serve the people with intellectual and developmental disability. And so now, without further ado, I will pass the mic over to the moderator for the panel discussion, and Associate Prof. Kenneth Poon. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So thanks, Tim. It is very, very good to be here today with everyone. And let me see. Shall we have a F11, please? So that we can see the whole screen. Present, yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so well, before we get to that point, tell you what, let me just get to the right slide first. Okay, so with this itself, I'd like to welcome you all to this afternoon's panel session. So as what you can see over here, the title of this panel today is Let's Move Lives, Let's Move Barriers and Move Stigmas. So in a certain sense, we started off today moving. And today's panel session, really the goal is not for us to be down here to listen, but really for us to be coming together to bring our minds together so that after this we can have some action from whatever role we are, be we a caregiver or a self-advocate or somebody who works in the field. So It is great pleasure that I'm here today. I've had the great joy of being part of the Mamre Oaks community since the beginning. When was it? 2018, is it? 2018. 15. Time flies when you're having fun. And I think that if I were to reflect upon the broad journey, if you ask, is that what is the magic ingredient of what we do? And it's as you can see in the pictures down there, it's really doing things, but not doing things for the sake of doing things, but doing things together as a community and enjoying each other's presence and being from there blessed by everybody's company. We experience each other and experience God. My biggest concern always is that I tend to get so happy about talking I forget about everything else. So what we're going to do today is to really have a conversation around this, not only with the panelists, but with all of us over here. So let me just start off by introducing the panel for today. And as I introduce the panelists, I will ask the panelists to maybe say something about him or herself. Okay, no, actually herself. I'm the only him around today. All right. So first on my left is Jessica Sito, who's a self-advocate. Jessica, would you like to tell us something about yourself?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Sito. My age is 31. Now I am working at the children's kitchen as a front of house. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Very, very happy to have you here today. Our second panelist is Dr. Eunice Tan. I can't believe that I was looking at this, the name, because I've known Eunice from a long time. And Eunice, would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
I think Kenneth missed the point that he was actually my PhD supervisor many years ago, and I think I took a few years out of his life when I was a student. I think I drove him nuts. But anyway, I got it. So anyway, I was a teacher, and I was also working in the special schools for many years. And then later I went to academia. I'm also a parent of a child with special needs. My son has moderate to severe autism. Yeah. So
Thank you, Eunice. Oh, so sorry, were you going to say something else?
No, I was going to say I wear many hats.
Wonderful. And I think that's what we bring in. We bring in different perspectives. And some, actually, no, sorry, I shall not talk about my experiences. All right. And then our next panelist is Shireen Yo, who is founder of SIPS Unite.
Yes. Hi, thanks. So, my name is Shireen. We recently started this support group called SIPS Unite. So what we do basically, we are a support group for siblings of people with special needs. And the reason why we started this is also because if you look at most of the talks and workshops for caregivers, you think about the parents, you think about maybe auntie, uncles, but oftentimes the sibling that actually falls into this caregiver role quite early in their life. They become kind of a secondary caregiver. Their needs are not, the support needs for them are not thought of sometimes, or the type of conversations between parent and child are not taken into are not really talked about as much. So that we're really trying to like drive that conversation. And myself, I'm a sister to a brother with more on the mild autism. So I'm very happy to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you. Very good to have you here. And our fourth panelist is Fiona. Fiona Cole, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm the principal of St. Anthony's Canossian Secondary School. I was previously an alumnus of the school as well, and from Canossa Catholic Primary School. I guess the reason why I've chosen to be part of this panel is because if many of you are not aware of, the Canossian schools have been very much involved with students with hearing loss, right, since the 1960s. In fact, that is our specialization. We do have a Canossian school that specializes for students as such. And as the secondary school, we are also the center for students with hearing impairment who join us. But besides those with hearing impairment, we also have students who in the past with cerebral palsy, all right, and even from the different
needs some
spectrums of ADHD or dyslexia or even mild autism joining our school. So we do have quite a good history of embracing students with disabilities. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. I think always after this, I will say that if I were a girl, I will be an alumnus of that school because my mother was there too. And it's just across the road. So very, very happy to have our entire panelist with us today. So as you can see, I'm very much a person of this generation, although I'm not aged that way. And these days, we take out our phones, we don't hide them. And so what we want to do today is really to let this be a process by which we are in communication with each other and sharing our views through the Mentimeter platform. So if you have a phone or an internet-enabled device, raise your device, shoot at this QR code. And we will have a couple of questions that we will be asking throughout today. So very, very happy to take your time, get on to this. And I see people shooting hearts as well, so that's fantastic. And that's the entire aspect. Okay, I'll give a minute or two. And actually, whilst you are shooting out this, I have to wait for people to come on before I flick on the slide. But really, perhaps we can start thinking about our first question that I wanted to start off us by thinking about. And the question actually is, how inclusive do you think our community is right now? How inclusive is your community right now? And it's fantastic. We have quite a number of people on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, and with this itself, I will very much encourage you to take a look. If you were to have shot the screen rightly, what you will be seeing is 5 responses. Is everybody okay? Yep. Can? You need to scan again. I can show the QR code again. All right, just bear with me. Okay, you got it? Yep, all okay? Okay, so with this itself, we've got 16 responses, more people coming in. Okay, some of it. So let's see what our broader panel today is talking about in this area. So if we are looking at responses from those around here, what you are saying is that this is a very classic Asian distribution. We stay away from the ends, right? So we have 2 people who are saying that Singapore is our community is a somewhat inclusive community. 12 are sitting on the fence saying that it's somewhat inclusive, and then with 9 saying not really inclusive. So with this itself, I would like to actually hear from you, and before I move the question to the panel, whether there is any reason why someone says that I'm just going to ask for one response from one person who said that Singapore, no, not Singapore, the community that we are in is an inclusive community. Would anybody like to venture, anybody who keyed in that 2, one of the 2 would like to venture a comment? Yes, sir. Would you like to tell us your name?
I'm Anthony Yeo.
Anthony?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Anthony Yeo. I'm father of an autistic son. For Singapore, I'll speak for Singapore, not so much of the whole world. We are raising awareness for all these special needs, and people are getting more tolerant. So I don't want to say that it's not really inclusive, and I see more of the efforts that's been done over the whole Singapore. Some may not did it correctly, but it's okay. so long as there is awareness and the heart to make Singapore inclusive. And that's why I choose the word inclusive.
Thanks so much, Anthony. I really appreciate that you sharing your perspective. Let's perhaps have one response from someone who says that maybe we are, as a community, not really inclusive at the current moment. Would anybody like to, one of the 10, like to tell us why you think so? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Evelyn. I'm actually a volunteer with Ministry of, we call it Rising Star, meant for special needs. It's currently we are at Christ the King, preparing the kids to receive their sacraments. Many parents come to me, you know, and says that they don't know what's going on. The school, they keep changing the school. The kids, as they go through the different phase of life, they have to change school. They are clueless, you know, and all of them think that the school support is not there. And the same thing to the I regret to say that even the church don't really provide the inclusive facilities. Take, for example, kids with on a wheelchair. It's not even able to access into the premise, the building, comfortably. So I think there's a lot of work we have to look into, you see. And Mumbai Oak is a good place to be, but a lot of people not aware of it also. I mean, I'm talking from the perspective from the parents that I dealt with, you see. So here I am, joining the talk, trying to find out more, and maybe, you know, hopefully we can have some inclusiveness in the whole thing, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, and really I think, and thank you for sharing some of the struggles that you are seeing. I think we've had two views, and we will definitely have the chance to hear a little bit more throughout this session. But what we are hearing is that looking at the current situation now, there are lots of gaps. There are gaps in the community, in the broader physical access, but also in terms of the attitudes that sometimes come. But if we look at it from the perspective of time, we have gone some distance. So actually, the question is, where should we be heading if we want our community to be an inclusive community? So with this itself, I want to put the question to the panel actually. I think my first question is, now what would an inclusive community look like for me? Okay, so when I say the word inclusive, it means that I think about a community that accepts me for the way I am. So there is the attitude part, the way people look at me. There is also the inclusive in the way that the community actually is a place in which I can go to. So we have examples about actually getting there physically, but there are also examples of how people might be looking at us, or whether I will be able to access the material within a community. So with this in mind, I wonder whether Jessica has any thoughts about the first question. So what would an inclusive community look like for me? Do you want to, so the question, Jessica, is your community now inclusive?
At my workplace, sometimes my bosses and my colleagues is very kind and very patient, and also willing to teach me a lot. Usually my boss and my colleagues, they treat me as normal I am, and even as low in even I go to shopping also, sometimes cashier is very kind and patient in payment while I am on the queue or people behind me. Sometimes in the transport I'm going to work, the buses even wait for me. As also in traveling in the MRT.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say about how do you think how do you think that your community can be more inclusive, or how do you want the community to be inclusive?
To be active, like the people, impressionist people, to be more coming out of the house, to be active.
I like what you say, to help the people with special needs come out of the house to be more active. Again, come back, I always think about the title of today, which is moving, and the moving has got to do with coming out of the house and being with us. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you.
I wonder whether Eunice have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. Following up to what Jessica said, when I talk about inclusive society, I think of every child or every individual with special needs not being left out. And it doesn't have to be, in our head, it's always, inclusion means everybody included. But my son is in a segregated setting because his needs are very severe. And that's what he needs most at the moment, because the skills that are given to him and taught to him is needed in a segregated setting. I think what Jessica says is true. Like my husband and I made the decision when he was first diagnosed that we will always include him in all our activities in families. So he goes with us everywhere, and even when he's jumping up, he's 21 years old, he's jumping up and down and squealing away. People look at us. Somebody said, but one mother said to me a long time ago, she said to me, Eunice, they're not looking at you with malice. It's just curiosity. So when people look at me that way, I would sort of gently explain to them what he has. And usually they want to know more. And to me, that's a way of spreading the knowledge about autism and special needs to our community.
Thank you, Eunice. Shireen, do you have any thoughts about how community can be inclusive?
Hi. Yeah. To answer this question, I actually spoke to my brother. I did like a mini interview with him, and I explained to him. I asked him, "How do you find Singapore to be an inclusive community?" And of course, I had to elaborate a little bit. What does inclusive mean? Just to give you all the background, the context of how I explained it to him. He said, "Do you feel included in groups of people, in social settings? Do you feel like you belong? Do you feel comfortable? Do you have friends?" Yeah. And his answer is yes. He's a very optimistic person. He said, yes, it's very inclusive. Then I asked him the second question. So how can people help you feel included in a group? What can people do to help you feel included? And he told me that, he likes it when people ask about him, care about him, talk to him. And I think that's an interesting point to me, talking to him, because even as his sister, when I'm with him, and let's see, we have a 7-year age gap. I find that sometimes, say, if I'm involved in the same activity as my brother, and he is able to converse, maybe he may get a bit confused sometimes, so you maybe have to repeat yourself, or he may be, when he answers you, maybe you need to ask him to repeat himself or change the way he's explaining. But he can have quite effective conversations. So what I found is that sometimes people talk to me about him when he's there, and that is one thing which I personally struggle with, because he wants to be a part of the conversation, and he's there, and he's capable, and I mean, capability or not, that's actually irrelevant. But in his case particularly, to me, it just doesn't make sense, because he's capable of this conversation. And even one time I brought him out with me and my friends, and my friend, fantastic in the sense that he was very curious. Maybe he's worked a little bit with autistic individuals on maybe the further end of the spectrum, so he wanted to find out more about can I ask this? Can I say this? Can I do this? And he was asking me. And I was like, hey, my brother is here. Ask him. And for my brother, he's not used to it as well. And you can say it's autism, but I also think it's just the fact that most of the times we talk over him, we don't talk to him. So when suddenly he's included in the conversation, he blur, he's not responding. I have to poke him and say, Sean, they're asking you a question. You try to answer, come back, be present, right? Yeah, and then he will answer. And I think that's great. I mean, I really enjoy it when people include him. Even in our church as well, he has this group of friends that are fantastic. His cell group, they include him in all their activities and everything. So yeah, to me, a more inclusive environment will be one where we include those of us who we see may be different, and we have direct conversations with them rather than through someone else, which is why I'm so happy that, Jessica is here with us today, and she can speak for herself and not somebody else speaking for her. I mean, if my brother could be here, great, but he's not available today. Yeah, so I'm here speaking on his behalf. Thanks.
Thank you, Shireen. And I think I really am appreciative because with Shireen, you're speaking today, actually also with Eunice, you're speaking with two voices. Partly also the voice for the person with special needs. So in Eunice's case, her son, and in Shireen's case, your brother. But also you sharing with us your own voice in this. And I think that's so powerful, because when we are talking about inclusion, really it is us thinking not of one person or just the parents, but really the entire community. And what is coming out so clearly is that all these are pretty much part of the same package. I think one of the questions was asked earlier was, now do I speak in my my role as parent or professional? But really, I think we are a whole person. And I think for those of us who are present today as we are having this conversation, what we are thinking about is really to put on our many roles, but also to reflect upon our own role down here as part of community. And how are we providing that voice? Are we in, from what we are doing, are we including, or are we sometimes even excluding? So of course, I encourage you to think about that. I want to put the same question again to Fiona. What are your thoughts on what would an inclusive community look like for you?
Okay, I think in at least at SAC, the barriers are the invisible barriers, because I think we have the facilities, we have the teachers who are trained, all right, to support the students. But to me, I think what it means to be an inclusive community must come from the perspective of the student with the disability. And I think what we are not dealing with enough is this idea of loneliness. You can be with everybody, but you are alone. So I think one of the things that I feel that we can do better as a school is really to deal with that social emotional connections that our students with disabilities have. And for them to not feel shame, to have that sense of low self-esteem. And that sometimes is more than what the school can give. And sometimes it comes from the wider community, and sometimes it comes from the baggages that they have when they come from the primary school and how people may have perceived them. So to me, these are the two areas that I feel what an inclusive community means. Yeah.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you for highlighting the social aspect. And I think when you talked about that, I think it's so powerful, because one of the things that we see from research, regardless of whether we are looking at it internationally or whether we are looking at it in Singapore, and across all groups practically, it's always this single one message that people with special needs, at the end of the day, if you ask them, what do you think you want? They want friends. They want to have the relationship, the connection with a lot of people around them.
Can I add on?
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of parents want, and rightfully so, they want an inclusive education setting so the children go into primary school and all that. But I think they sometimes forget that students do feel it. They're always the bottom of the class. They always need a helper. They're never the monitor. They're never the prefect. They're never the, a leadership role. They're always the one that needs help. Some of it years ago, there was a research done, and these group of, but then at time, 30 years ago, means inclusion wasn't as well done as it is today. And this group of students said that, if we had it our way, we would like to be in our own school with our own friends. And I think many of the deaf students, when they finish, they all join the deaf community, and they all start signing, and they marry. Most of them would marry within their deaf community also.
I think within there you raise a tension of sorts, if I can raise that. So tension on that. On one hand, when we talk about inclusion, we are looking at inclusion with and being with everybody else in the community. On the other hand, you are saying that sometimes being with the community, with everybody else, is very difficult and is very challenging. And therefore, sometimes the safe space is really being with friends who are similar to myself. I wonder whether any of you have any thoughts about now what does this mean for you when we are thinking about inclusive community?
I think there are many benefits to inclusion, but if it's not executed well or planned well, it can flip the other way, where it can actually bring more harm, I feel.
Well, at least at the school's point of view, we feel that we need to give equal opportunities to all. And I'm very glad to say that in the past years, we have seen our students with hearing impact risen up the student leadership role. And in fact, it was even very deliberate that this year, we actually invited one of our alumnus, who is a hearing impaired student, to come back as a guest of honor for one of our school's awards. Because we want to raise the awareness of diversity and achievements, and we have to redefine the notion of success. And I find that one of the tensions that we manage in school is this idea of inclusion versus performance. If you ask your parents, they want their child to do very well, every child to do very well, right? But then sometimes it then means that, they may not want their student to be with other students who may be worse off or less capable. So that is the kind of tension that we need to manage at the school as well, and the kind of stakeholders that we have to help them to understand what it means to be inclusive. And sometimes when we choose to be inclusive, we have other priorities other than just achievements.
Very, very true. And I think depending on the hats that we wear, it can be quite challenging. I wonder whether any of you have any thoughts that you want to be sharing over here. Yes. I'm just one. Do we have a microphone that we can pass around? Thank you.
I agree with. I agree with.
Eunice, Fiona.
Eunice,
Yes.
that's right. Sorry. Yeah, it's well, when I run a Zoom session, preparing the kids, preparing the children for reconciliation or sacraments, but because it's not possible at the moment now to do it physical, so we decided to use lessons, Bible stories, and we use that to motivate them. And what important thing is they want to feel sense belonging, especially during this time where they're being isolated. And they look forward to the Zoom session where they can see the same familiar faces, and they share with their struggles about, my exam coming soon and what. And it's, to me, I think it's good to have that kind of activities, to gather them and to share and open up, and some of them really can actually can articulate what's in their mind, and and I find that is quite rewarding when among themselves they were sharing, you know, their struggles, trying to meet good grades and trying to please the parents' expectations and whatnot. Yeah. So inclusive is also having a feeling of belonging, sense belonging in a certain communities. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Another comments from from someone else with us? Someone with us? Okay, then Bernard. After that.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm responding with regards to, I think, what Fiona shared about the
Sorry,
parent.
can I get a sense of who you are?
Sorry, I'm Frances.
Frances. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. I think with regards to what Fiona shared about parents having expectation of success for the children, I think as a community, we also need to relook at what success means, because I think nurturing our children to be, I think, compassionate and to also be sensitive to people of different needs. Doesn't need to be special needs, but any form of needs is also important, because those are, I think, life skills that they bring with them in their life. Whereas academic results kind of, after a while, all of us have worked, we know that maybe it's not that important after all. Yeah, so that's just my point.
Thank you, Francis, for highlighting that we do matter because we set the society norms. Very, very important point. Bernard.
Yes. Hi, my name is Bernard. I am involved in marriage and family. I was invited here, so I did my homework and looked up Monterey Oaks, and I read Genesis. And it's all about hospitality with Abraham. I ticked relatively inclusive only because I feel that for my experience in Singapore, it's not been inclusive at all. We say we are inclusive, but we are actually not. Personal example is my brother-in-law, who has been to mines for 40 years. And in 40 years, nothing much has changed in terms of what they do in a sheltered workshop towards, hearing devices for SIA and so on. It's not satisfactory work for them, and they're all of the same cohort. I look at Monterey Oaks and I think that one step further from what you're doing right now, which is wonderful, is to have a residential community. The reason I say that is because, marriage and family couples, they gravitate towards their own kind. And the issues with their children, their marriages and so on, it's very real. These special people would want a community of their own, not just to work, play, whatever it is, to have spiritual formation, to have a sense of belonging as well. And somehow, much as we think that they will integrate into society, they don't. And they basically are in their own cohort, and they feel better that way. So I've come today to this session with a goal in mind, that we have a large community that was built in 1964 by Jean Varnier, and I've been waiting. I've been actually saying to Gerald and so on, where is L'Arche in Singapore? I think it would be great to have something like this here. Is it possible? Yes. Do we have the funds? Yes. Do we have the administration and as well as the expertise? Yes. We just need a push factor. And though I'm in marriage and family, I'm happy to help towards this end if it's possible, because I have a vested interest and I look at a lot of people out there who are intellectually disabled in that sense. They actually have a need for loving as well as for community and belonging. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you for sharing the beautiful vision and for doing the Kichu for us. So we know who to look for. Thank you. I think it's if we look at from the perspective of how far we have come, I have journeyed in the field for a little more than, actually it's 25 years already, in the sector. And from there, I can see that there have been changes. So I work with teachers. That must have been about 15 years ago when my area of interest is in autism. So 15 years ago, I talked about autism to teachers. Teachers who have gone to a course on autism, and I asked them, okay, so how many of you here have known a person with autism? And I had only one teacher who raised his or her hand. I can't remember. These days, when I ask the question of my student teachers, it has changed. Does this mean that we have more people with autism in our midst? I mean, that's debatable. But really, I think what has definitely changed is that there has been a lot more awareness in our midst of what is going on. So I think that's wonderful to see the change. But if we ask the question of now, where else can we go? Bernard talked about residential housing, and just before where I did my doctoral studies in North Carolina, and down there I was together with my wife, assistant teachers in a catechism class for some at that time teenagers with autism. We had 3 in our class. So that must have been about 5 years ago. His father came to visit. His father is a professor. He came to visit NUS, and we met up. And he was saying, the father was telling me that, let's call him Peter, okay? The young man, one of the young men. And Peter is now. When I spoke to the father, he was in his upper 20s, and he was saying that Peter now lives at home during the day, during the weekdays, but during weekends, he goes to a group home. And what was going on down there was that when they had signed Peter up for the group home, they gave him a choice, and they were having a conversation with him. The son, but they call the son Peter. Okay, Peter. I should think of good names. Okay, they call his. They asked his son, their son, whether he wanted to stay there all the time, or whether he wanted to spend weekdays or weekends with at the home. And the son, who had autism and moderate level of intellectual disability, was able to have a guided choice-making process with the parents. Of course, with the parents, another thing they were keeping in mind was that that probably was an interim step for the point where they might have somewhere for him in the longer term. So if we were to look at a facility like this, which I have to say, even in the US, is considered not standard care. It's a little bit more than standard care. But I think that's the kind of gap that we can potentially be looking at a society that can be inclusive. And I think increasingly, from the perspective that I am, I also serve as the board chair of Rainbow Center. So one of the things that we are looking at also is that we are looking at not only options where we can have specialized facilities, but we also want to be looking at means in which we can be helping families to have their child, the adult, and the families be included in society. So I think what we want to be looking at in the longer term is a whole continuum or a suite of options. And I think these are things which I will say that in early intervention, we have grown. In special education, we have a good range. But in the post-18, the post-school services, that's an area that we still have some room for growth. I think with this in mind, I wanted to actually ask Jessica a question. And Jessica, I didn't ask you that question before. So if you don't know, it's okay, you can tell me. So, but for me itself, I really wanted to find out. You said that with your workplace, you're very happy because the people there are very nice to you, right? And you have friends. Can I ask you that if you have a magic wand and if you can make something better, what will that wish be for you? And if you don't know, it's okay, because I didn't prepare her for this question. But I get so inspired talking to Jessica, you see.
At my workplace,
Yeah.
everybody and my bosses and my colleagues, they respect me and they give me also, they like me a lot because I'm very hardworking girl. I do a lot of things one. I also know how to operate boss. I also have served people that food in the front of house.
Mm-hmm.
And also customer also very patient and also respect me as I am as a normal kid.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds like, I think, Jessica, that you are in a place that is very supportive and that you have a community around you that is very helpful for you. I think with this itself, we might want to move to the next question, because as we are thinking about our vision of what can be, and we are looking also at the survey that we have said, that, you know, even if we look at the, where we are at, we are sort of like almost not really somewhat inclusive. I mean, if we look at what we have indicated. So the next question for me actually is for you to go again, look at your phone, and key in up to 3 words. What are the barriers which are currently present in my community? And I think we have some of us have talked about some of them. Okay, some of us have said a few things. Some of us have not had a chance to say something yet. So let's all have our voice in there. What are the current barriers that we are looking at? And for those of you who have just joined us and do not have that code, okay, I am going to go back again. So I'll tell you what, let's try to see. If you are on the phone, that is, you can go to your Chrome or Safari, type www.menti.com, okay? The number that you see there is not the total number for this week. It is it's what will get us to this current question. So it's 64918443. Okay, 64918443. You go into menti.com, key in that code, and you should be seeing something like that on your device. And I'm seeing some responses coming in, but take your time. Also, for the panel, if you can start thinking about some of the barriers that you see in your community, okay? We will wait for our audience, our people who are with us today, to share their views first. I think I am keeping my eye on the timing, but if I do go past the timing, just Joseph, give me a yell or drag me back on track. But I think right now we are still doing very well for time. Okay, so and keep keying in. I know that all of us have various levels of comfort on our devices. So, or if you want me to show this, I'm a little worried about going back to that screen, because this is not PowerPoint I'm using. So I worry that if I go back there, you will lose this screen that you are currently on. So, but perhaps as we are continuing to key in the responses, what I will do is I'm going to ask the panel this question, okay? What are some of the barriers that are currently present in my community? So what is in my community now that makes it not inclusive? What are the problems that I'm facing? Okay, Jessica, do you have any thoughts?
Now I have no barriers because I am so blessed. I have a lot of people to support me, even my parents and my brother. And also I have very good bosses and my colleagues. They are very patient, kind, and love to me a lot. And also I think it should be let all the Pacific children who come out to be active, to work together in the public as a team. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And I think, you know what, I think you are very blessed because you are saying some things which are things that many parents that I know, many people with special needs that I know tell me this. They wish that they have a good family. They wish that they have got good friends. They wish that they have got people in their workplace that understands them. It sounds like you have all three. So definitely it is something for us to be very thankful for. Wonderful. And do you have anything else? Thank you, Jessica. Eunice, do you have any thoughts about the barriers that you see in our broader community?
So the first thing one of the first things that comes to my mind is that I mentioned it to Jerry that my husband's Catholic and I'm Methodist, but we decided jointly that we would we expose the children to both, but we have been sending our children to the Catholic Church, you know, for various reasons. And so we are quite active members at St. Ignatius. And what I've noticed, because I used to teach at a Methodist school and a Sunday school, that the programs of special needs in the Protestant churches and the independent churches are amazing, absolutely amazing. At the Catholic Church, well, the one that I've attended or another one, we have nothing. So my son sits there. He's able to more or less tolerate the entire thing, or sometimes we leave him at home, depending, or we bring him outside if it gets too much for him. But I don't think the message is way above him. I don't think he even knows what's going on. The communion, he doesn't know how to take the bread. He finds it disgusting, so he just stands there. So I feel that part of his religious life has not been developed enough. Yeah.
Thank you for highlighting that. I think that's something that many parents think about and worry a lot about. Thank you. Shireen? Barriers.
Yeah, I would like to echo what Jessica said about her workplace, because currently my brother is actually interning at an IT company. I'm his sister, not his mother. I don't know what company he works at. So he studied at IDDs. So as part of their program, they have an internship program. That's what I understand. And then the school attaches them to various companies. So one of the issues that we faced was quite hard to find companies that are open to having him join them. He could be on paper. His grades are actually quite average. He's doing okay in his class at ITE. I don't know whether better than average. I think it's better than average. Okay, my dad nodded. Yeah, better than average. But so on paper it's fine. But then he has to go for an interview, and then the interviewer will have certain concerns. Like, oh no, what if he has a meltdown in the office? It's just strange because my brother doesn't have meltdowns, but they know that autistic people have meltdowns. Does he? Actually, he doesn't really. So there's an assumption that they're already making before getting to know him as an individual. So I always feel for my brother because he has mild autism. He's very independent. He studies well, all these things, but he, in a sense, is not like other autistic individuals that are performing, at least academically, at the same level as him, in the sense that he doesn't present as neurotypical. He stims, he shakes, he has verbal stims as well. He will say, he will suddenly blurt out certain words. And I feel kind of sad for that sometimes because people see that behavior and they make certain assumptions about his level of intelligence, but it's not correlated, especially not in his case. He is quite an intelligent individual. Maybe in terms of communication, there may be some difficulties. But yeah, so to me, the barriers is really in terms of understanding him as an individual, getting to know people with different disabilities and special needs as individuals with unique support needs, unique things that they struggle with, which of course, okay, we in a corporation in Singapore, you know, you still have to like try to, meet certain, find certain categories so that you can try to put people in boxes, so that you can try to curate programs. I'm sure the schools has this problem as well. Yeah, but I mean, that's like this optimistic wish that I would have, that, you know, we have the time to get to know, on personal levels, get to know individuals as they are, and find out, like I said, talk to him, find out what he needs. Are we talking to Jessica? What do you want? Are you talking about friends in the community? Do you want, does he want autistic friends to hang out with? If you talk to him, he went to Pathlight. Prior to that, he was in a mainstream school. I've asked him before. He actually prefers his neurotypical friends. You know why? Because when they talk to each other, most of his friends with autism, they may have certain social communication barriers. So when they try to talk, they may miss each other. They don't connect on. They are talking about different topics, talking at each other. Whereas if he's talking to a neurotypical person, the neurotypical person is able to help him bridge that gap. And then he can connect, and he likes that. So yeah, of course, different disabilities are also different. Different people are different. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this question.
Thank you, Shireen. I think that's such an insight that you shared, that we so frequently have stereotypes. And I think one of the things that we hear about the field is that little knowledge can be dangerous. I think we have gone from the stage of no knowledge, and we are still trying to breach the little knowledge barrier. And I think I think as a society we know a lot more, but I think in terms of knowing the people, and if you think about that, our own personal experience in life, how many of us actually know personally a person with special needs and have a relationship with that person? And the answer usually, particularly for people of our generation, is not really. If I think about my educational experience, I know of at least two, but only because I look at it from hindsight and put on my diagnostic lens. But really, how many do we know? Not many. And because of that, we really don't know how to relate. And I think for this itself, our younger generation have a lot more opportunities to interact with them. What we know, again, I'm a researcher, so you got to bear with me. One of the things that we know from research is that you don't need research to tell you that, but it's very clear from research that the biggest predictor of an inclusive disposition is actually, surprise, surprise, successful interactions with a person. So we know that the more teachers have good experiences teaching children with special needs, the more they are inclusive. But the question is, what are we putting in place to really make that happen? What are we if we talk about an inclusive society, what are we putting in place to make that happen? We talk about an inclusive church. What are we putting in place so that our children, the young of the church, can create a church that is inclusive? I'm starting to get ourselves fired up for the next point, but we got our principal down here to tell us. Fiona.
Yeah. Well, actually, when thinking about barriers, I just want to point out a very simple everyday barrier that some of my students experience, and that is wearing mask. For my students who are hearing impaired, they depend on lip reading, so they don't do signs, all right? So they do lip reading. And this has become a severe impairment for them. Yeah, because it becomes very tough for them to be able to see what you are saying. And even with hearing aids, and even though you were to wear the amplifier, it's difficult for them. Yeah, so that is just at a very simple level, everyday encounter, that is a barrier for some of our students with hearing impairment. But I think the other one, I think in schools, the other barrier that we often face is fatigue. I think teacher fatigue. I think many of us would have big hearts, for students with disabilities. But I think managing the workload as it is something that's quite trying. Yeah, so sometimes when I tell them, oh, we need to do more, then they'll be like, oh, more, So that would be something that would immediately occur in the mind of our teachers. So it's really about thinking about how can we really make use of whatever existing resources that we have to try to reach out to them. And I think one of the things that we are beginning to see is that being an inclusive community in school, it's far more than helping the child to succeed academically, but looking at their social emotional development so they don't feel lonely and they don't experience that low self-esteem. And I think that's the part that we are pushing for in the school.
Thank you for highlighting that piece of how the person with special needs feels. I think that is such an important piece. One of the more insightful studies that I did several years ago was to interview some teenagers with special needs. And one interview particularly troubled me so much because this was a Sec 4 young man with autism, and we asked him, so can you tell us about what autism is to you? And he was saying, oh, autism means that I'm like crazy, that I lose control, and people are scared of me. And for me itself, I walked away feeling so disturbed, because for me itself, education is education. I mean, that's wrong. No, let me take a step back. Academic grades is academic grades, but what are we having a person walk through the education system, learning about him or herself? And so I think increasingly about that aspect, I'm getting more attuned to. And actually, just this morning at 11, I was telling those who were with me, at 11:30 this morning, I pressed my submit button for my next grant, which is looking at social emotional outcomes of adolescents with special needs. But really, I think that is something that we are so concerned about these days, because academic skills and academic performance is just one facet. I think we have talked about so many facets which are important, about how people feel about themselves, about the relationships with family, the relationship with community. And actually, if I can just share, one of the things that I worry about all the time, actually, I think about as a barrier sometimes, which is which doesn't appear much, but in my, I worked at the turn of the century. I sound so old. I worked in the early 2000s in KK, where we were, I was a psychologist helping the diagnosis of children with special needs. And one of the things that I stepped away from was the thing which is not usually said. But the more I reflect upon it, the more I think is a driving force. And that's the relationship among family members. And that's reflecting upon my bigger family as well. We have children, we have people with special needs. And what we sometimes see is that one family member in particular, after her child was diagnosed, she appeared for the first party, Christmas party, and then she disappeared. And we didn't see her again until 7 years later, we had started talking. And so the entire dynamics of the extended family, the dynamics of the relationship between parents, the relationship between parents and grandparents and in-laws. That's something we know from international research, that a lot of marriages, going back to what Bernard is talking about, crumble because the having a child with special needs adds so much pressure that it becomes much harder. And for those of us where we have in Singapore, the good thing is that we have families at close range. The bad thing is that we have families at close range. And then when we have all the parties, and my grandmother is the sweetest creature on earth to me. But I still remember one celebration where she was talking and telling her cousin about everything that my daughter is doing developmentally, and why isn't her grandchild doing the same thing. So I mean, and that was just purely out of no malice intended. I know my grandma, no malice intended, but I can only imagine the knife of I mean the hurt that is causing people, and I think that sometimes is that tacit barrier that we see. Sometimes these tacit barriers are laced with the sweetest intentions, and that makes it even harder. So that brings us to actually, I always get so excited hearing from the panelists that I sometimes also forget that we do have a lot of things going on. So and if I were to look at those of us over here, what are we saying are the barriers? And so what we have done is that we have word clouded whatever you have written in. The word in the center, the words that are the largest are the words that actually have the highest, the most frequently talked about. So if I can actually hear from from our collective voice over here, what we are saying is ignorance. That is a barrier. The lack of understanding, the lack of awareness, that is a barrier. The communication, or the lack of communication, I think, the lack of acceptance, these are barriers that those of us present are talking about. There is so much over here. I don't want to talk without reading. Let's take maybe about a few seconds just to take a look at this over here. I mean, so there is a very big piece of society. Stigma was talked about. Publicity, and that's the big society piece. I see another theme of the church piece that talks about a cleric-centeredness, the need for a larger pastoral plan. That's another piece that we are seeing over here. I see another theme of our focus in society on achievement, competitiveness, competence, I thought I saw something on academic grades, achievements. I think that's another piece. And then there is not so much at the core, but more broadly at the fringes, also something that talks about misunderstanding, prejudice, stigma, that's coming out as a theme of what we are talking about as well. We are also talking about resources, about physical facilities, school support. What else I'm looking at? Employment is another one. And then building on what I said, there's another theme also talking about family support. So powerful, and I would like you to really take a look at this. And I want to hear also from you, those of you among here, of those whether there are any of the barriers that you really would like to talk about, or is there a barrier which you've not had the opportunity to share? I think we've got time for maybe about 2 or 3 thoughts to share. Yes, sir. Would you like to introduce yourself first?
I'm David. I'm also a researcher. I think I'll take a risk in revealing who I am, because last year I just got diagnosed with autism, the high-functioning type, and the old name for this will be Asperger's syndrome. So I can communicate with all of you, so I feel included in a way. And the reason why I'm willing to say this in public, this is the first time I'm saying this in public, is because from my own experience over the past 39 years of my life, I think one of the biggest obstacles, right, towards understanding of people with autism, I think, is ignorance. And so when I heard what Shireen was saying just now, I think one of the big themes, right, that came out to me was ignorance. Neurotypicals don't understand what autistic people are thinking about, how they think, why they behave in a certain way, and they make assumptions as to why they will behave in such a way. And because I only got diagnosed last year, so I do not know a lot about this condition, I have to ask neurotypical people who have subject matter expertise, right, in this, right, in order to understand what autism is. So I think that there is a good opportunity for mutual learning between the neurotypicals and autistic people. And because of this ignorance, right, what I have experienced is that people make assumptions about me. People make assumptions about why I think or talk about things in a certain way. And because of this, my mom told me when I was very young, when I was in kindergarten, some of my classmates, right, would be saying, why is he so stupid? I did not know about this until my mother knew about autism and she told me about this. And as I think about that statement, why am I so stupid? Some of my classmates said that I am, right, that kind of person. I think it really made a difference to me because I see myself being a researcher, being at university. And I would say, sometimes I told myself, someday, right, I'll be marking the papers, right, of these students, right, if they have children, 20s, they might be, some of my former classmates, they will have children and going to universities. Someday I may be that professor, teaching them, marking their papers, giving them their grades. I'm not going to take revenge because I think this is not Christ-like. As a Catholic, I don't want to engage in revenge, but I just want to let people know that a lot of ignorance goes into this when people have certain misconceptions about what autistic people are. And I've taken the risk to say out in public today, first time doing this. Right? I think it's because I think I need to let people know that we are normal people. It's just that perhaps we behave in a very, very different way. And which is why I want to go back to some of the points which maybe Shereen has especially said just now about some people feel uncomfortable in talking to her brother. I think one of the things which probably your brother, right, would really, I cannot speak for your brother because everyone is different. To those in the autistic community, they will know that if you seen a person with autism and you are seeing a person with autism, it means that everyone is unique. And I think probably what really happens is that when people see autistic people, right, because of the ignorance, right, they will start to think that, oh, I do not know how to relate to this person. I do not know what this person is thinking of. So maybe that's why they speak to you directly instead of speaking to your brother. Whereas they do not know that maybe your brother has a level of comprehension that will be able to allow him to communicate with neurotypicals. But it's the ignorance that it's really a sticking point. And the other thing I also want to say, perhaps it also goes back to some of the issues of how do we define success and achievements. I think one of the things is ableism. I use this term, it's about the assumption that if the society thinks that if society would think of disabilities in the sense that, if we think that normal people can do such a thing, therefore people who are disabled, right, should be able to do certain things as good as we Well, so the assumption is that we normal people can do it, so people who are disabled can also do it. But I think this assumption is still very deeply, or this barrier is still very deeply embedded in much of society today. So it is quite difficult for people who are with disabilities to actually overcome that barrier of ableism, where society assumes that we can do certain things, but there are times when we can't do certain things because it is very difficult. And I think, just to add on, perhaps my last point, I think I took up too much time. Right? I think it is the need for people to accept the way we think and behave. Because if people do not accept the way that we think or the way that we speak or we do things, I think it will be kind of difficult to have an inclusive society, because there will always be a pressure to get people who are, let's say for the autistic people, there will always be this pressure to get autistic people to behave like neurotypicals. Yes, there will be conformity, yes, there will be inclusion, but at what cost? Because we'll be putting the autistic people under huge pressure to conform to societal norms, right? Whereas we should ask the question, maybe society should change the norms, right? To help to allow them to know how to relate with us. It's a two-way street. I'm not demanding that society become autistic, but I'm just saying that we have some level of understanding so that we know how to mutually accommodate one another. So this is what I want to share. And sorry if I've taken too much time. Yeah.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for your sharing. I really appreciate your disclosure with us, and I think we really respect you, and thank you so much for contributing and for trusting us enough to share with this. I think that definitely is always hearing from first persons. I think that is what that actually helps us to better understand. So thank you so much for highlighting this and to give us a sense as to what else we can do. Because like what I mentioned earlier, many of us have grown up in places where, if I ask ourselves, how many of us have had a full conversation with someone with special needs? And I shall not ask for hands, but usually it is still the great minority of society. So thank you for giving that voice. And I think increasingly we want to hear more and more of the voice. Any other thoughts? I think we have time for one more comment. Yes, Francis.
Yeah, I think like what Kenneth said earlier, I think not many people have that opportunity to have conversations, like detailed or in-depth conversations with someone with special needs. And I'm privileged that I had the opportunity, I think, through our friends at Namri Oaks. And I think that something that really struck me, I think, in the past year as I continue to converse with one of their ex-members as a friend is that for me, I think I tend to go back to my own tribe or my close friends and my families, right, in my daily communication and all that. But when it comes to this special friend of mine, sometimes I feel like I'm the world to him because he shares with me things that is new in his life, that's exciting and all that. And he always remembers me in his wishes, you know, for like the seasons or the special occasion. Whereas it's like an afterthought for me. And I think through him, I've learned to, I think, be a better friend to him because I realized that maybe to me, he's just one of the many, whereas to him, I might be one of the few. So I think it really takes time to get to know our special needs friends. And I'm also mindful that not everyone has the ability to communicate and to have that conversation with all of us. But I think with greater awareness, I think we can all do more and to create that more inclusive environment for all our special friends. Yep.
Thank you, Francis. And I think I just want to pick up on that one thing you said. I mean, I think that's so powerful. Is that to me, he's one of the many, but to him, I'm one of the few. And for us, I think, for us all who are seated down here, I think that is such a stark reminder that when we start looking at friendship networks, how broad our network is. And then if we were to reflect how this will be for different people with special needs, it can be so different. I currently have a student who is actually looking at that. And one of the things that we saw, and she studied the friendship networks of people with intellectual disabilities. And one of the things that she found was that in the networks of people with disabilities, generally what you find is that a lot of professionals or workers sit in there as their friendship networks. And the paid workers constitute a very large proportion of the networks. So for us to, I mean, always to think about, first of all, as professionals, how we play a very important role. And secondly, for those of us in society that we aren't really counting very much in their numbers. Why? I think with this itself, that's also a very good bridge to the last question I have actually for us all today. And really, it is this question that I want to get us thinking now, as we move towards the wrapping up this afternoon's session. I mean, I was a little worried about whether we had enough questions, but now I worry about whether we have enough time. Okay, so the final question is actually, how can we start now, after hearing the sharings, after hearing the different perspectives, become an inclusive community? Okay, I'll give you some time to think about that. Panel, I'll also be asking you this question soon. So if I can get you prepared to think about that. I'm also, this being a Memory Oaks event, I'm also going to ask the three Memory Oaks directors whether they've got any thoughts later. So you have been warned. Okay, so don't hide, Meg, I see you. Okay. So with this in mind, Jessica, do you let's start with the question: how can we start becoming inclusive as a community for people with special needs? What idea do you have?
I think it should be include all the special needs people, to involve all the activities like events, like playing sports or some dancing. They also can come out and share their view to the public, and they also can communicate them. Let the public to understand us to work together as a team. Thank you.
Thank you. So powerful. Invite people with special needs to the things that we do. Such a powerful message. Thank you, Jessica. Any other thoughts, Eunice?
Just a quick one. Just that to start, I think it starts from the family, it starts from the individual, and that's how we get the ball rolling. Yeah.
Thank you. That all of us can do something. Shireen.
Yeah, I was thinking about what David said. Yeah, and about ignorance and
Damien.
David.
Alamak, she's right. My brain has fried.
Yeah. About ignorance, right? And I realized something, that yes, awareness has grown in terms of, like, many of us know broadly what autism is, what is Down syndrome, what is intellectual disability. That's like the baseline, the professional knowledge, Yeah, we know that, but I think the other part that is missing, it seems, is the understanding of how you can communicate or what to do. Like, I know this person has autism, I know how it presents itself, but then I meet this person, I don't know how to respond. Like, if I don't have an autistic brother, actually, I have an autistic brother. When I meet another autistic individual from his school, I also don't know how to respond, frankly. Yeah, so that how part of the awareness, I think that might be missing. Their understanding, recently I learned this, the difference between implicit and explicit. For many neurotypicals, it's, for most of us, we understand implicit messaging. So if I say something, there's like there's the explicit message and then there's the implicit, right? My brother had to answer this question in Bible study. Yeah, my Bible study lead asked him, what are some of the fruits of the Spirit? And then there was this whole passage that we read everything. And then my brother started, fruits, banana, apple, pear. I'm so sorry, I'm like outing him right now. And then I'm down there laughing and sniggering away. And then the guy, bless his soul, he's just like very serious, taking him seriously. Okay, but I'm talking about the other, and yeah, there was this whole thing, trying to get him on track. But that missing is the understanding of implicit versus explicit, how he can actually adjust the way he communicates to his my brother. And yeah, and similarly, for the deaf community, I used to volunteer with them as well, and I found that, okay, once I'm there, then I know, oh, if I cannot, one is speaking, if you speak louder and more aggressively, it's not going to help. You speak louder and clearer. You, if that is not working, you can write down, you have phones, you can use your phone, and these are things that have been told to me quite directly, and they, yeah, it's not spoken about enough, I feel. So yeah, the how. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. For me, I'm just thinking, because in education, we are always about raising awareness and dealing with this idea of ignorance. So I think in terms of becoming a more inclusive community, we should be talking less about, but talking to. Right? And how can I bring some of my students, my girls, up to the forefront and their stories to be told, rather than being reliant on mainstream or mass publicized materials that we receive? But how can we bring their individuality to the fore so that it becomes a lot more real, a lot more human, right, for the rest of the community?
Thank you so much for all the sharing some, for talking about the importance of all of us starting from where we are, in terms of helping to communicate, as well as leading and giving the people with special needs a chance to come out and share their views as well. So let's have a sense also from what you are saying, in terms of what we can do. Let's hear us. If we look again, more participation, being a catalyst of change, setting up a residential community to build a relationship, talks, forums, redefining normal. Oh goodness, I'm very, very confused. Taking the effort to understand, being open, listening, leading from example, creating it ourselves, educating the public, re-educating society, listening, celebrating with open hearts, being open, taking time to listen. Such powerful aspects. And I think one of the, and I'm going to have you take a look at that and have a bit give you some time to digest all those information, all those wonderful ideas that we have. But I just wanted to pick on one point that David talked about earlier, about really understanding and ableism. One of the terms that we are using a little bit more these days is this term called neurodiversity. I'm not sure whether you've heard of that, but I think that when we talk about neurodiversity, it's us stepping away from a disorder. It's us stepping away from somebody that is even special. But rather, when we think about neurodiversity, what we do is we think that at the end of the day, the brain, everybody's brain is different. And really what's happening when we talk about neurodiversity is that everybody has a different way of thinking and thinks differently. And so when we start exploring, as we start using the term neurodiversity, we start to get a sense that, you know what, everybody is different, and so we expect that difference, and so we interact with everybody based on who they are as a person. We've got about 5 minutes left before I ask the panel to share their final take-home comments for us all here today. But I wonder whether our friends from Memory Oaks have any thoughts to share. Jerry is doing the arrow. Okay, so Diana, you want to say anything? No, any thoughts? What I mean, I think you see, we have very good conversations down here. We have conversations about where we about what society is right now. We have conversations about the importance about looking at different perspectives. We have conversations about and we have highlighted key barriers that exist in where we are right now. And really, I think we are at the point now where we're asking ourselves, what can we do? Where should we start? So I just put them at the spot, just for the fun of it. But really, from us down here, where do we begin? It sounds like so many things that we can do, but what is the first step? Jessica, you want to say something about where should we start?
Today I buy coffee, right? At the coffee shop.
Yep.
I try to buy coffee. I only got $1. Then the next person, they really give me some of the coin to help me buy some coffee. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think one point that Jessica raised was having the extra space in the heart for anybody who might require the extra support. I think that is such a powerful example. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think that's one direction that we can be heading. I mean, I think sometimes we think about, this one over here, beyond my pay grade, right? But I think sorry, this is coming out too frequently in my life nowadays. But I think Jessica is actually raising the point, you know what, it is not beyond our pay grade. If your pay grade is lower than humanity, then sorry lah. But I think all of us here are humans. And we are all, if we hold by the Christian faith, we are all sons and daughters of God. And really, I think Jessica has raised that really we don't need to go too far. It is from where we are, where we see somebody, a brother and sister, who's in need, and that's taking that additional step of being the hand of God to those around us. Wonderful. Thank you so much for raising this. Any other thoughts from anyone, and definitely the panel? Yes. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Jenny, okay, and I was a SPEC teacher for many years, actually 33 years, okay. So actually my thoughts are, okay, every time I mean the barrier is lack of understanding. And I think, it's not that the community doesn't want to include people with special needs, but sometimes they really don't know what are the needs, what is the communication, what is the behavior, and how to support. So those are the things that I'm hearing a lot, okay? And also many times we think we do so many things with good intention, okay? We say, oh, yeah, they need this, so we must give them this or teach them this and that. But very often we also forget to listen, to know actually their vocation in life. Okay, I've read this book about adaptive catechesis. yeah, is also talking about this. They say, we say they need this. We want to help them. We are always, out to help them. But actually, even in my case, I find that I'm so inspired by the children with special needs. Very inspired, and why I enjoy the work so much, because I'm blessed. Their behavior actually teach me how to live life. For example, I recently attended this confirmation retreat with this 15-year-old lady, and she said one of her highs in life is she's very thankful to be born, and the father actually endorsed, because the father said, because in one of the sessions they talk about the sin of anger. She said, I come back from work very, very angry, but my daughter was there at the door to welcome me, to give me a hug. Everything actually went, he was so comforted. And recently I also talked to my spiritual director, was saying, did you see Jesus in that young lady? So often we think that we are giving. Actually, they are giving so much to us. But the thing is, the community, I don't blame the community or, in that sense, because they don't understand their behavior. And when they are very young, they really struggle a lot, because the kids who are very young, they just cannot control. They want this, give it to me. And if you're not giving it to me, I'm going to throw things, I'm going to hit you, those kind of things. But as from my observation and through my years, as they grow older, actually becomes better, because their understanding improves. And they also learn to communicate. So so I said, how can we start being inclusive? We actually want to tell others, or how to help others understand their behavior. And I'm not looking at they all must achieve like that, but what are the accommodation and what are the adaptation that we need to help them, do what they want. This is my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. I think it's such an important point that you raised, that the community can do so much, but also starting with the individual. Any other thoughts? Hi.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Donna, and thank you, everybody, for being so brave to participate and to share, and especially the panelists and Jessica. To add on to what Jenny has said, another area is because it's mindset. What Jenny mentioned is also mindset of the public in general. But I think an important mindset and perhaps perception could be a start within the family members, within the church. So we always we often hear people don't understand, but who are these people when we address as people? So why don't we start very small? We focus on our immediate environment. For the family, it is always a very painful journey to have a child with a disability or even a learning disability, because we have to conform to the norms, especially within the Singapore setting and our educational environment. So I think the support, one of the little things we could do is to start with supporting the family. A pet to all family members who are supporting their children. So then could we come up with programs, perhaps, be it educational materials, be it workshop materials, be it frequent, continual series that runs on a quarterly basis or on a half-yearly basis to support families who are immediately diagnosed with a child with special needs. So early intervention takes care of that. But now we are talking about within our community, because for a lot of us Christians and Catholics, who is our community? And that is the immediate environment. So then we attend weekly mass. Sometimes some of us do better. We try to attend daily mass. Then where can opportunities to serve? I think it can be trained. For example, my son, regular boy, but active when he was young. Why? Because both parents are active in sports. So we encourage a lot of running, a lot of, so going to a regular primary school to study, the first conclusion is the teacher says that, oh, the child has ADHD, but actually it's not. It's just the learning environment needs to be suited to the child. So we curate, right? We have to curate, we have to ensure how they learn. So it takes a lot, but where then do the parents go to for such information? And then I think I'm diverting, but in some ways, because it's so much, it's a whole platform. So we need to create a lot of platforms to support the family, beginning with the immediate family members, beginning with extended family members. So if we were going to follow the whole liturgical calendar for the whole year, I think there are so many activities within our liturgical calendar, beginning with the new Advent season. So how can we come up and curate with activities that can include persons with learning disability, persons with special needs, persons with a disability? Yeah, so growing up in an environment in which, with the Canossian sisters, in Canossian schools, we often see the students from the Canossian Hearing Impaired come join us. The school sisters involve us in so much of the community activities. So for someone who doesn't know, we were then introduced from young. So I think little by little, we just have to find pockets of opportunities for the community to be aware. So that's why I kept saying visibility, opportunities for visibility. What about our daily masses, our weekend mass? Could we, I think now we have sign language, okay? Then what about including some of the students to be able to read, maybe not the whole passage, a line or two of the scripture, first reading, second reading. Somehow, maybe not at the big masses, but at quieter masses. And maybe at masses, because I'm still new to Memorial Oaks, I'm not quite sure what is being done, but there are so many lovely staff and family members from all the photographs that I've seen on the website of Memorial Oaks. I think the parents and the caregivers and the volunteers have done such a marvelous job. So I think it's just everybody contribute a little, and it has to be repetitive. And I think succession planning, a whole year calendar, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, possibly over time, I think we will definitely get somewhere.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Thank you so much for raising the very important point of how we can start, who can start. I now am reaching the point where that I have been alerted that we are getting to the point. So Joseph, should I flash this thing out? And two things, because I'm going to flash this thing. Joseph, this is for evaluation, right?
Yes.
So for those who are present, if I could trouble you to put this thing. But I also want to ask the panel whether there is any like few sentences that you want to say to have those of us present go back and think more about how we can start. So the final question is, what are the one or two things that you want to tell all of us down here so that we can make the community a more inclusive place?
My message is to everybody to be patient, respect, love for all passionate people, and please give us a chance to come out for the community, for all of us to be active. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. That's such an important thing that you're saying. Thank you. Us giving that chance. Eunice?
Just very simply to just be kind and not to make assumptions, because sometimes we assume certain things, but sometimes it's not because he's spoiled or because he's naughty, but there may be other issues, right? So just be kind and don't make assumptions.
Thank you, Eunice. Shireen?
I'm thinking about, I want to echo what Fiona said, just talking to them individually, as individuals, as humans. I think sometimes we have this tendency to maybe a bit infantilize people with special needs because they behave in a certain way. So just treat them as individuals with autonomy. Yeah, and not always, I think labels in a way are good, but we also need to kind of like draw away from that understanding, awareness of like different special needs is good, but then once you know that, step away. This is an individual that you're looking at, is a person with different likes, dislikes. Yeah, I also just want to say that as a sibling, sometimes I feel like we are this unique position where we learn about the person before we learn about the disability. I know my brother since he was born when I was 7. You know, I learned about him as an individual, and that's like the disconnect sometimes between siblings and parents. Like parents, before they get to know the child, they first hear from all the doctors and everyone, what is autism, what is this, what is that, and then they make certain assumptions before the child. And then for me, he's my brother lah. He's very irritating sometimes. Yeah, sometimes he made a lot of noise and I'm very irritated. But yeah, then that's yeah.
Thank you. Person first. Such a powerful message. Fiona.
Actually, you just took the words from me. It was just 2 words. Persons first. Yeah, because I think we are so quick to objectify and we look at the disability rather than thinking about them in terms of the needs as everybody else. So really, I think it's really just persons first, and then everything else is secondary. Yeah.
So with this itself, Jessica, Eunice, Shireen, Fiona, and all of you, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your participation and really for being a part of this journey that we want to embark on to make the community a more inclusive place. Anything else to add, Joseph, Tim, Jerry? Jerry's going to say something. Then we're going to end off, right?
I want to thank all of you for coming here. I really enjoy this conversation. And I want to say that with the special person, my time with them is very enjoyable because I enjoy being with them. So I really like what Shireen and Fiona says, and Jessica and Eunice. It's the person first. So I want to thank each one of you personally for joining us and being with us. Thank you, and Kenneth. Thank you very much.